Well, good morning or good afternoon if you're in the USA, and if you're overseas, it's either nighttime or very early in the morning. So, welcome. I am Bruce, aka the guy in the blue shirt, as I'm known here on LinkedIn. But I have a company called Process Cleanup, and my core method is simpler, faster, better. And Charlene is in the hot seat. Not sure where you are today. I know you're on the East Coast. So, Charlene, take it away, say a little intro, and then we're going to set the context up for this. And so over to you, Charlene.
Well, I see these interviews sometimes as like a little bit of a break, For those of you who don't know me, my name is Charlene Nichols. I've been known as an innovator and a pioneer, and I've been in the eye care industry for 27 years. And I've spent the last 7 years taking my, knowledge and understanding of the industry to build solutions and resources and platforms that empower the people working within our industry. And recently, we've been getting referrals to other people through our eye care network because eye doctors see lots of patients. And it's been exciting to see some of the people outside of the industry. So, Bruce, you were introduced to me through the amazing Dr. Christy Wynn. Yeah. And it's been interesting to see these tools that we've built being universally applicable to other industries. And your industry is a very broad industry. It's one that doesn't get a lot of attention because it is so broad reaching. There isn't typically like a coach or a business enablement or a strategist kind of industry. It's kind of in every industry you have these people, or these amazing individuals. And I feel like more recently, and we'll talk about this in a minute, because of the new virtual community capabilities that are now transcending through hybrid events into physical connections, it isn't like you have that one person who's the whiz at work that doesn't really fit in anywhere, doesn't really go to the trade shows, doesn't really interact other than with the few people that can understand what the heck they're talking about on site. You're now in a position to attract and interact with people that are much like you. So I don't know how to define your industry, but I've learned a lot through working with you.
Yeah, actually, that's a great observation. But let's do a couple of go backs. Yes, Dr. Christina Wynn is become such a pioneer in her own section of the community, and my life is forever changed through that introduction, both not only on a relational level, but a practical, physical level. I went down to Dr. Christina Wynn's practice in Florida. And she was the first person that ever introduced to me the concept of wearing prismatic lenses. And I tried them out. They were a little different to get used to. And that in my glasses, I mean, like your glasses, Charlene. And ever since then, I've been a prismatic lens fan because it gives me, with my very special eye condition, the best I can get from my eyes. And having that enablement, as you said, I mean, what a blessing. So not only the enablement of being able to continue to build a personal relationship with her, but also keeping up with the latest technology. And in fact, this morning she posted about some of the latest technology and contact lenses. And it's like, she's like an encyclopedia of everything optical. So,
and, we'll talk about this a little later, but one of my latest creations with my co-founder, Trevor Williams, is Eyewear Art Walk. And it really is a manifestation, I don't know a better word, of everything that I've observed in working with people like Dr. Wynn and, Barry Santini and Eric Matei. Like, these are all people that are innovators in our industry, connectors in our industry, and they get the word out. Some of them have started to have a public facing like portal, if you will. But not everybody knows how to, like, the way algorithms work in social media, you're only going to be seeing, you're only going to see content that's relevant to you. Right. So if you're relevant to me because you're a business strategist and I'm a business strategist, and you just happen to know about, dry eye and blepharitis, but I don't make that connection, then I won't follow that. But this happened to me recently, actually. I was introduced to a man, brilliant man, Warren Lincoln. We're going to be introducing him later this year through our social media. He's joining our team. So incredibly lucky to have this man on our team. Warren was introduced to me because we're helping a brand bring gaming lenses to market.
Right.
And he only met me because another man who I met through the platforms that we build, Marcus, who is an esports player, came on my platform because it was the first time in history that he had a way to take what he knew about gaming, which is many, 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 many years of data and insights and learning how gamers have grown, how they behave. He works with big, big, big companies with 6-figure budgets to help them open up the market of gamers. But he came on voluntarily to my platform during an event we did with Dr. Lamott, who was an emerging influencer, to talk about children and vision development. And he was so excited that he was able to share what he knew with our industry that he kind of left moved because he had never included anything related to vision and eyes in any of the research that he had done. And because he's a researcher and a strategist, he had created this beautiful presentation for us that talked about the missed opportunities. But he sat me down behind the scenes and said, I can't believe I didn't stumble upon this already. I can't believe I'm always looking for new information on how to help gamers, because he's not just here to sell to gamers. Gamers are a very protective community. They don't just let people come in and start marketing to them. You've got to show that you understand the culture. You want to be a part of the culture. They don't really respond well to game washing. I don't really like games. I don't play games, but I'll put this billboard. They don't really seem to respond to that. They seem to really respond to brands that invest in the culture. But he became so passionate about vision and gaming. And then we just went our separate ways. And he introduced me to Warren very recently. Warren was working with me to talk about these lenses. And as he's talking to me, he's rubbing his eyes and he's like, I'm like, would you stop touching your face? And he goes, well, I'm really self-conscious because I was just told I have something and I don't really know what it is. And I said, well, what is it? And he said, blepharitis. I said, please, for the love of God, wash your hands and stop touching your eyes. And now Warren is joining our team because he's excited that he's going to be able to help gamers get access to these lenses through his tremendous connections. But he's actually going to become a champion for gaming and vision because he's suffering from a condition related to that. And he didn't really understand that. He just went to the eye doctor, got a diagnosis, didn't really know what to do from there. And now he can, you know what I mean? Now he can be more proactive. He started researching, watching all Dr. Terrio's videos, shout out to Dr. Terrio, and seeing all of the information that we were providing. And now he's doing proactive things to make sure that his eyes are more moist. And he said it's been a game changer for him. Just learning the information has been a game changer for him. So as eye doctors, I'm thank you for letting me go on this monologue. I appreciate it. But I'm having these realizations in real time. As eye doctors, and you know this because you follow Dr. Wynn and many like her, they are so detail oriented in talking amongst each other. But there just isn't enough time to be that detail oriented in the exam room. So patient facing portals are very important in this day and age.
Actually, you bring up some amazing connective content there, right? So I'll do a go back and you ask me, what does somebody in my space do? Well, at a very high level, I tell people that my unique skill as a process whiz is kind of like your story. I'm really good at joining the dots between either functions or people or ideas. So, it's funny, I was talking to my customer earlier this week and they were saying about unique skills. And I said, I'm just a professional dot joiner in a very complicated organization that my customer exists in. It's not in the eyewear industry, but the other thing that you talked about is, I'm a process guy through and through, and people will ask me, well, what do you do about this, Bruce? And I'll say, I have a process for that. That's my that's my kind of canned answer. And people think I'm extreme. Well, I am extreme because, you know, to be a connoisseur of my thinking around simpler, faster, better, I have to be daily simpler, faster, better, because, you know, I can't be less authentic or more authentic, whichever way you want to look at it. If I don't practice my own stuff, you know, I can't be the product of my own process. And anyway, weaving all that together, I mean, what you talked about with your example and the story is it really talks to how communities really work. And it's the
It's all
four.
connected. That's why I kept going, because I'm like, wow. It's like when you go backwards to go forwards, you're like, here I am, but here's kind of how I got here. So let's talk about connecting dots, because when we hear this, we have a visualization. I visualized connect the dots when I was a kid, or when my kids were small, those little kind of coloring books with dots. But what do? They give you numbers, and in some cases they give you a picture.
Right.
So you know what you're connecting. But when you say that you connect the dots, and I know a lot of people, shout out to Karen Michelson, because she uses that a lot. I think people underestimate the power of seeing the picture before the dots. So you don't just connect the dots. You see the full picture before the dots. Then you see all the dots that should be representative to create that picture. And then you number them to make it easy for people to know which dots to connect first. Now, if you took a connect the dots picture and you connected dots your own way, you would get a picture, but it wouldn't be the same picture. It may be a right picture, maybe a wrong picture. So just knowing how to connect dots is a skill. But you also have the unique ability to visualize the outcome and to connect the right dots. So I want to make sure we are clear about that.
So yeah, so I talk to everyone all the time about the 4 C's. Conversations lead to connection. That's the first thing. Connections, if you attract and jive with the right people, will lead to a community. And as you know, I have different kind of mini communities. But the key thing is inside that community is a 3-dimensional way to collaborate. And a lot of people I see, you know, particularly on different approaches on LinkedIn, that's my primary platform, they'll say, well, Bruce, it doesn't work. Well, when you do a quick analysis, they've skipped one of the C's, and or they've just gone from a conversation straight up to wanting to collaborate with you. So they've missed 2 of the building blocks that creates, you know, my brain is very unusual. It's also unique, where I can build a 3-dimensional join the dots picture, and that's represented here, right? I mean, look at where we took the flat join the dots on a flat piece of paper, in other words, Web 2, and we mustered it or created it into Web 3, and that's what it is. See, there's me in my 3D store, which or community now, and I'm going to be building very specific communities around that. And one of the communities I'm going to be building is, you know, around the whole, what I call digi-physical, but you know, it's an interactive, in-person combined with virtual, combined with all those 3-dimensional tools that people only typically see on a flat piece of paper. Well, my brain, I can see it this way, which is
So I want to go back to something you said, though. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I finish your thought.
Well, and then I was just gonna, it's super annoying for some people because they're like, how the hell did he come from there to there? And then the final piece of that is that, you know, if you don't have a process, you don't have to have my process, but, you know, my process is the net result of 50 years of doing this stuff, right? So I have some things that I can share. And talking of which, part of the process, if you are listening live, Charlene and I can't see you or know that you're there unless you say hi. So don't be shy. I say, don't be shy, say hi, right? And you know, from working with me, I like to do those little conjugation of words to create another way of explaining complicated concepts down to that simpler, faster, better level. And I think the turning point for us, I look back at some early notes the other day, is that, you know, when I defined for you what simpler, faster, better meant, and then your team went and built the 3D version of that, it was very simple. It was like, can I get to anything that Bruce is doing now or wanting to do in the future in 3 clicks or less, right? Or if it's in a physical environment, so like I'm a LinkedIn local host, can you actually come to our event physically and get through the registration, meet and greet process in 30 seconds or less, right? So if it's physical, simpler, faster, better is I can get to everything I need to do 80% of the time in 30 seconds or less, or if it's online, 3 clicks or less, right? And once I define that with you, through you, for your team, I mean, look at the momentum we got. We were like kind of stuck, right? To be fair, we were like stuck. Like you kept saying, Bruce, well, what do you mean by simpler, faster, better? And then you'd show me something. It's like, Charlene, that's not simpler, faster, better. But once we defined it in Bruce's head to you, those two rules are groundbreaking. And that's what I always go back to. You know, people say, well, when you do process analysis, Bruce, how do you know it's not simpler, faster, better? And those are the two defining rules. If it's electronic, can I find it in 3 clicks or less? If it's physical, can I find it, do it, or use it in 30 seconds or less? And everyone says, well, that's impossible. It's actually not impossible because this is the proof.
Well, and you know, you did end up going to the point that I wanted to call out when you had said people tell you it's not working in LinkedIn or whatever you tell them to do. And my question now is always, what is working?
Right.
You know, and how did you decide it was or was not working?
Yeah.
And you know as well as I do, with all the different events that we do, lives, social media, data, there's so much data. I mean,
Oh,
we talk about data, and this is an era where data is becoming a huge topic of conversation. Now we're talking about first party data, third party data. Someone said zero party data. Okay, so now we're really confusing people that still don't know what regular data is.
right.
But data is all this information that you get. You get a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
But the question is, what is it telling you? How are you, like, you might read one set of data and you might get one set of insights, and I might read that set of data and get a different set of insights. And
Right.
this is where I think we can really expand the conversation to include AI. AI is going to develop insights with data that's going to be very almost kind of manufactured based on the algorithm, which could be very different based on the AI you're working with. But we as humans are not very different. We all have a different set of input that has developed these perceptions. And so we perceive, different data differently. So when somebody says something isn't working, I think the first question should always be, how did you come to that conclusion?
Right.
What were you looking at? What were you expecting? And where do you feel it went wrong?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think, those categories of data you talked about, see, my simpler, faster, better brains already said it's my data, right? My data, because inside this environment and all the spaces that you offer to other people, you get to keep your data. You get to actually review your data. You get to actually use or not use your data, right? So that's what people, it's very subtle that we get to keep our data and not give it away to another party. But that power to empower yourself with your own data without the biases that anyone else is going to put on top of it is your data, my data, right? And my data is unique to me and my communities, right? So
And
so
we've learned a lot over the last couple of years, especially the last 2 years. A lot of people don't know that I was producing virtual events,
right.
a year before the pandemic. So if you were to look at the data before the pandemic, it was very minimal. There weren't a lot of people coming to those platforms. And then during the pandemic, it spiked. And you'll see when we do our events, like we did the Optical Metaverse event in July,
Right.
when you look at the data, you'll see that there was a little bit of traffic leading up to the event, but there are a lot of traffic during the event. But actually, I like looking at the traffic, even though it's a smaller data set, of the people before the event, because
Right.
these are people who did the research, were looking forward to it, were motivated. When we look at, there's a lot of digital marketing going on now. It hadn't been before. Before this, most people did their business physically. So if I see you and you're in my booth at a trade show, or you're in my store on Main Street, or you're, shaking my hand because I came to visit you at your business, I see all of that. It's only one person, and that's all I need. Or 50 people, or 100 people. Those numbers used to be great, but now numbers like 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 isn't enough, because we know in digital, you need a much larger data set to boil down to something that's going to have an impact on your business. The problem is these data sets are so large. What we're starting to see, let's use your website as an example. If you look at how much analytics you get on your website, how many visitors, some people get thousands, but they're not converting into customers. So our focus is going to be exclusively on helping our customers to understand how they want to collect data, how they want to analyze the data, and making sure that they can be our partners in collecting it, and be our partners in reviewing it, and being our partners in analyzing it, so that they can start to see the conversions. The worst thing that can happen is somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, Bruce, I want to hire you." And you say, "How'd you hear about us?" And they say, "I don't know. I saw a LinkedIn Live." But what you don't know is they saw the LinkedIn Live, but that was your 7th touch. The 6 other touches may not get credit for that 7th touch, but you wouldn't have gotten that sale or that customer or that follower had you not achieved those 6 other touches. And that may have been they heard about you through a friend, then they started following your newsletter, then they followed you on LinkedIn, then they saw a couple videos like this, and then you just said something they said, "Okay, this person's consistent, they keep showing up, they're interviewing all these different people that I really believe show their credibility. Now I trust them." We really have to become more open in how we analyze data, and not just feel like laser focused, like this is it, it's black and white, because there is no black and white anymore. And if we don't challenge ourselves to open up our perspective and our peripheral vision to see all of the other information we're not collecting, because it doesn't seem relevant to us, because we're just looking for what we call bottom of funnel data. Who's shaking my hand? Who's signing a contract? If we don't look at all of that top of funnel and middle of funnel behavior, then we're going to really hurt ourselves in the future, because that nurture and relationship building aspect is more important now than it's ever been.
Right. So great examples. And, so some people might say, and again, if you're listening live, please comment. We can't see you, but you still can receive the recording. But great example of that is that, in my recent discussion with you, I had a little aha moment, or, a Brucey light bulb moment, which I always do after every conversation with you. And one of my communities is this community that I completely overlooked, right? All my live stream guests, but also all my live stream hosts, when, I've been in the guest chair and not hosting. And so that was what prompted me, Charlene, to say, "You know what, Charlene, if we can figure out today, let's do that role reversal," right? But more importantly, when I actually went and looked at the information that was not data, there are 85 people now in that very unique, special community that, shame on me, I've ignored. I mean, that's my fess up. I've ignored them. And so now I'm going to stop ignoring them, and I'm going to go back to the basics, which is, in the conversation, did it lead to a connection? Did connection lead to community? And in that community, am I truly collaborating with those unique people? And the answer is, Bruce, no, you're not. So shame on me, right? I'm preaching all this.
It's an opportunity. We can't address 100% of the opportunities. You're at the frequency that I call serendipity. You are. Things
Right.
just happen. You don't have to go looking for opportunity. You've worked enough on yourself as a human, both, spiritually and physically and professionally, that you're in alignment. You don't worry about the things that aren't happening right now. You avoid friction, you address it. You're very much a present human, and you give back, not always to receive, but it doesn't matter if you're giving to receive, because you do give and you do receive. And when you do need, you do ask and you do receive. And learning those very simple ways to live, what I call serendipitously, has been
Right.
a huge challenge, because, I like to control everything. Like, I got to do this and I got to do this and I got to do this. And when you learn to just play your role the best that you can and
Yeah.
let the rest figure itself out, you actually lose a lot of people. You lose a lot of people because you operate at a different frequency that those people don't
Right.
operate at. Doesn't mean they're not there, doesn't mean they're not following you, doesn't mean you can't communicate with them. They're just not in alignment with you. And if you're in a position of alignment, you're going to fall out of alignment with those that are not in alignment with you. But
Hmm.
you will discover more that are in alignment with themselves. Because when
Right.
you're in alignment with yourself, you automatically attract those that are in alignment with themselves. And I
Right.
found that I've been attracting so many more people like that than ever before. And to me, the people I attract, that's my data. That's not in a
Right.
spreadsheet. There's no like little PDF that anyone's going to give me. I just know, okay, the people that I'm attracting, that's who I want to attract. So I'm going to
Right.
keep prospects, community members, friends, doesn't matter. I
Right.
know I'm moving in the right direction. So to me, my biggest data is the people that I have around me.
Right. So that's interesting because that's an oxymoron, right? That slaps the whole volume right in the face that everyone says digitally is about volume. In some extent, yes, it is about volume, but for me, it's about quality and relevance of the connections, right? So,
Mhm.
when I started to look back in the research I did in the last couple of weeks, the one common theme with all my live stream guests and also those people that host and ask me to become a guest is we all connected in some common ground in lots of different ways, right? And that also led to the fact that, this year I'm a LinkedIn local in-person leader, as you know, Charlene. And this year, taking Tisha Marie's Pelletier's lead, she does Social Connect Simplified. And we had a long conversation about how could I take LinkedIn local, take some of the concepts that Tisha Marie Pelletier is so good at executing, which is the simplification piece. And I went about simplifying our LinkedIn local. And the way I did that is I invited a team instead of just Mary and I running every single function to make that in-person event work. And what's been amazing is that team of 5, number one, I've got so much more diversity in thinking than I have between Mary and I. I mean, Mary is super creative, don't get me wrong, but the team of 5 have got almost like this additive effect because we build upon, it might be one word or it might be one sentence or it might be a question that somebody asks, and it's like, you know what, Bruce, if you can turn pushing things along, and that was kind of how it felt to me with LinkedIn local before, if you can make it flow, then that's the whole concept that you helped me with earlier this year about, how do you go from friction to flow, right? And it is that sea of friction. That sea of friction is time consuming. It's not very healthy. You
It's a
don't
time
really
suck.
attract.
It can
Huh?
be. You can, it's funny. I used to do probably about 4 to 5 hours in, I call them Zoom calls. I didn't use Zoom, but
Right,
people know it's Zoom, a day. And now I do almost none.
right,
And I'm seeing better results now than I had before. I still do meet with people. I'm not going to say I've abandoned video meetings. I haven't. And I still make investments in, interviews like this because, you support me and I want to support you. And I always learn something new from this. And it's great to get your name out there. So there's a lot of, you got to think about what it's an investment. Everything's an investment. I'm making an investment of my time. What do I want to get out of it? I've already gained so much from just before we even started with our 5 minutes backstage. I learned that you have, friends in Denver that you're very close with that are very influential. And I am meeting with all the influential people in Denver. I'm trying my best because what I'm finding is I do have an incredible team and they've been great with outreach in the ECP market. But our goal with our upcoming event is to bring new opportunities to light by bringing other audiences to our events so that our industry can discover new things that they can do, new opportunities. And it's already happening. We've made so many connections before the first show even launches that have turned out to be extremely successful. So those connections exist with or without the event. And when you have an event that makes connections before the event even occurs, and obviously after and during, that to me is the evidence of building success, because you're absolutely right. It's the community that you're building around the event. Now, it's not just an event that happens. It's an occasion. You go, you shake hands, you kiss babies, and you leave. It's a accelerator to the connections you've already made.
Right.
And then you can continue that. So we're looking for that longevity and sustainability. That's our ultimate goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because one of our new team members is the Denver connection, and I only pieced it together like literally last night. I was texting her because Kristen's our marketing specialist for LinkedIn Local, and Kristen's taking our marketing in a different direction, but a more kind of pleasing direction. And what's interesting is I met Kristen a year ago in May in 2023 at the Better Business Bureau event that Mary and I hosted. And she was very, I wouldn't say quiet or withdrawn, but she was very just kind of there, right? Fast forward to this year when we started doing some events together. And earlier this year, she went to Tisha Marie Pelletier's Social Connect, which is way more casual, simplified. Basically, it's a kind of business happy hour without any protocol other than just show up as yourself. And Kristen came to that and she took me one side and she said, Bruce, I've never shared this with you, but I get a little bit anxious at group events. Will you, can I shadow you for a little bit? And I said, absolutely. So what was amazing is fast forward to this week, through that shadowing and a few conversations we had, Kristen actually bought her own guest. She didn't need any help being introduced to anyone. And so she's taken that, if you're kind of a shy networker or a quiet networker, how do we get that group of people to feel very comfortable and very safe and actually wanting to come to LinkedIn Local in person? So she's driving our marketing effort in a completely different direction that I would never have picked up on.
We definitely need to talk offline about that. So I saw this happen with my vision show. It was profound. I had people who came to my virtual event who sat me down privately and they said, I don't feel comfortable at physical events. I feel like when I go to booths to talk to people, if I don't have the right badge, they won't even communicate with me. Right. I feel like when I'm sitting in the educational area, if I'm not a key opinion leader, I'm not in the Cool Kids Club, I don't get to network, I don't know anyone. And I've had a lot of people tell me that they've gotten career opportunities because they came to my vision show, sat down to kind of get to know people and practiced that kind of, networking virtually, which they were very comfortable doing because it's not intimidating. And when you sit down at a table at my vision show, when you've done this before, you're just instantly sitting with everyone. It isn't like, oh, well, you don't belong here. Like you're at the wrong table. It's always the right table. Yeah. So,
okay. Well, apologies. So we'll wait just a minute or so. We did have some technical issues. Oops, Charlene's back.
Yes, sorry about that.
That's all right.
And then when we did a physical event, you would see that they had a much easier time connecting because they knew these people. Just
Right.
because you see someone virtually doesn't mean that you won't know them physically.
Yeah.
And letting people meet virtually, knowing that those are the same people you're going to meet physically, that's what we're building and designing with Eyewear Art Walk. With my vision show, you meet virtually and you're in the industry, so you know you're going to bump into these people eventually. But when we launch our Eyewear Art Walk virtual platform, which we're going to be launching next Friday, which is
Right.
powered by the same tech that we use for my vision show, we're going to be bringing the audience in that is being invited to all of the Eyewear Art Walk tours so that
Right.
they can connect virtually to kind of get to know who are the brands, who are the people, how can I get connected? And then when they come physically, they'll have a much better experience.
Yeah. Well, I have a great physical example of that, which is with Dr. Irina, right?
Okay.
I met Dr. Irina through, jumping into some early audience participation, and I didn't really say anything. And after a couple of events that I came and watched with you hosting and the rest of the team, Dr. Irina and I just started messaging in the chat inside the show, as it were. Fast forward, I got to actually meet her in person eventually. When I met her in person, it was just like all the kind of nervousness or like the coldness, it just wasn't there. And then we sat down and we had a little light dinner, but more importantly, through that I found out she loves ice cream. So for dessert, we walked next door to the store in the mall, and I had Jurgen with me as well. And we sat there and had ice cream. Well, what's the point about that? Well, guess what? Dr. Christy Nguyen, after my eye appointment, we went out for ice cream. So now I've got this common bond with two totally different providers, right? I'm not in the industry, they are, and I tease them all the time about, hey, you guys need to get together for ice cream. And that's what we're going to do. We will eventually, and maybe it's in Denver or wherever it is, and yourself, Charlene, we're actually going to meet in person and have an ice cream discussion, right? Well, how goofy is that? Well, it's a great example of how it really works, right? That
You need to have
shine.
like an ice cream social. Trevor, mark that one down. But I have to tell you, Irina is a great example, Dr. Jacobin.
Yeah.
When we started, you needed to have vision because when we started my vision show, there were no people there. There was no data. There was nobody coming, nobody interacting, nobody doing anything. And she was a student and she saw my vision. And she already was kind of volunteering in social media with some of the other organizations because she was starting to see a big disconnect between the amazing information that these organizations like the AOA were building and developing, but a lack of, let's call it deliverability because not everybody reads the magazines or reads every article. So that social media content is very important because it's like snack sized pieces of content. And then people will dig further. So I think she kind of saw early on that we were building something that was like a content factory. So she came in, the very first project she did was the Hall of Vision. So she went, and don't forget, she's a student during the pandemic, an optometry student studying for her boards, working with me on this event. And she got to meet all of these different people, lab owners, equipment manufacturers, people that ran insurance companies, like all these different people, other doctors. And it really gave her a kickstart for her career because when she meets people, they know her. And she built her own, she took that and ran with it in her own way. And her ability to see these communities and these opportunities is an incredible example of how you can be busy, be a doctor, be a student, and use this virtual tool, which is accessible, to keep your networking going. Networking is the first thing to get chopped. It's the first thing when you go to an event, you got to learn, you got to buy, maybe you bump into some friends. Now, there are some people who do the opposite. You got to party, you got to buy, maybe you learn some stuff. But for the majority of people that are going there for a professional reason, networking is the first thing to go. And it's extremely important. not just for building friendships, not just for building, you know, like your crew who you're going to hang out with, but just talking to people and learning from them, because some of that information isn't found anywhere. You're not going to find that on any spreadsheet. Those are data points that are live data points. They call it now real-time data. You are responsible for collecting your own real-time data. And that's why a lot of the events that we build, they have accessibility portals, so you can sit down and have a conversation like this with somebody. And it's real-time data. It's up to you to remember that and document that and use that in some way, whether it be to improve or just be entertained. I mean, you don't have to, not everything's a transactional, you know, outcome, but every single one of us is a product of all the things that we've seen and we've experienced and we've done. And going out there and experiencing things is becoming more challenging than ever because of our limitations with cost and with technology and all of those different things. But now, well, actually, technology is a facilitator, not a blocker of that. But you get what I'm saying. It's just it's a great time to be experiencing more. Is my point.
Yeah. Well, and to finish that little sequel, as it were, I mean, look at Dr. Jacobin's today's situation. She's not only a leader in her sector, but she's afforded herself the opportunity to take all those tools and have a part of an independent eyewear practice, or, you know, herself. I mean, you know, it's amazing in that short span of time, you know, how she's gone from one kind of version of herself to now leading her own independent practice. I mean, unbelievable. And the cool thing with that is she's working on making it totally patient centric, not insurance centric, right?
Well, and let's not forget, Dr. Wynn is also very unique in that, you know, she's one of the few optometrists that's invited to go to Mito and showcase the Italian eyewear. And other than Dr. Wynn's social media feed, if you're not there physically at Mito, which is just this magical place, I don't know how else you would see all of these different like emerging eyewear creations.
Yeah, it's amazing. All right, so let's talk specifically about the June event. And I should have pre-warned. Do you have anything that you could share or show on that, or you just want to talk to it in terms of dates?
I guess I could. Let me see what I can find.
Sure. I'm sorry. I should have pre-warned you. But anyway, so while Charlene's doing that, the June event is going to be what I call a massive digi-physical. So you're going to be able to go in person. You're also going to be able to attend virtually if you can't go in person, and combinations thereof. So, and I'm lucky that I was considered to be a speaker. So somebody, you know, great example of everything that Charlene's been and I have been chatting about. I am not in that industry. However, you know, I'm going to not only learn, but add some value. Do you want me to share this now, Charlene?
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
I can. All right, here we go.
So there's different regions of Eyewear Art Walk. And this was a very, very, very big task. We had the responsibility, our team, of building an event that is accessible and inclusive so anyone can come.
Right.
But making sure that we do attract the right audience for the right reason, and we put them in the right place at the right time.
Right.
Now, as simple as I just made that sound, that's a tall order. The trick is making the navigation clear and easy. So people know, first of all, one thing we found is no matter who we're talking to, whether it be an eyewear brand, a optician or optometrist, or just somebody who understands they have eyeballs and they want them to work the best they can.
Like me.
And all three of those individuals are excited about this event. So they're all coming for different reasons. There are some people that want a very specific outcome, which are primarily the sponsors that are supporting us. So for that reason, we've created a region that allows them to achieve their very specific goals. But that doesn't mean that they might not stumble upon another opportunity, which is why we've created these regions. And when we're speaking with our sponsors and also with the attendees that are coming, We have found that this new way that we're laying this out, where we're showing the regions, makes it much easier for them to digest. So our first floor, first of all, this is a beautiful venue.
Oh,
It is a city building. It is owned by the city of Denver. We've had a lot of support with just the people that we're booking the venue through to, you know, we have a lot of channels that we're developing to get the word out into the local community. So it is very possible that we're going to need to expand our first region into the outside. But right now we're about where we pretty much have this entire first floor sold out with sponsors. And this is what we call the B2B 360 experience. So this is, you come in, you're a business. Let's say you're, you know, I'll use one of my own brands, Optical near me. You know, we are industry facing. However, we have a directory which helps people find a doctor near them. Now, a doctor or an optician or even a virtual optician that would come to our booth, they would want to learn, okay, how am I going to use these tools to build my own augmented physical business or complete virtual business? And we could talk to them about that. But a consumer might say, what's optical near me? And we could simply say, we help you find the best provider in your neighborhood based on your personal preferences. So if you want to find someone who carries independent eyewear or gives a spa-like experience in their dry eye clinic, you can find someone specifically based on those details. And they're, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was a thing. And I didn't even know spa-like environments and independent eyewear were a thing. So maybe I need to, you know, stay connected to this resource. So it really lets people understand these resources. Then we have our second region, which is exclusive to the industry. Not even you would be invited to come to this region, Bruce. Sorry for that. But this is just for eye doctors, opticians, and ophthalmologists, and the brands that are supporting them. And this gives them a private place to talk about industry-related challenges and opportunities and do some wholesale business. And this is the area where a lot of the brands are coming just to, you know, do business.
Right.
And then we have our third region, which I'm super excited about, which is called the Vault. And in the Vault, this is an exclusive area. It's VIP access only. Actually, we are bringing new industries in by request. So we've had a huge request from the jewelry industry to participate in our event. So we're actually building out a section that is exclusive to the jewelry industry. And a lot of people say, well, you know, why jewelry? This is your eyewear, and I'm sure you're, you know, inviting other companies, but why specifically jewelry? Well, you know, many moons ago, optical shops were mostly found in jewelry shops. And even to this day, if you buy a very high-end frame, you know, a very high-end piece of very high-end frame, like
Dior or something.
Eyewear, you're going to take it to a jeweler if you don't know any good optical shops in your area that are doing repairs. A lot of these frames, they have, you know, adornments in them. They're made of precious materials. Some of them are made of 18 karat gold. So it is not uncommon, but you are seeing this kind of emergence of jewelers wanting to create accessories like jewelry, like eyewear chains and you know, all sorts of different things to be clipped onto eyewear or to hold up the eyewear. And let's face it, if you're going to invest in fine eyewear, you're going to invest in fine jewelry and vice versa. So this is that kind of convergence we're talking about, where it may not seem like a natural connection. So if I was going to draw the, you know, connect the dots for an optical event, maybe jewelry wouldn't be a dot on that map, but Charlene did put it there. And so did Trevor. Charlene and Trevor put it there. And it's opening up new opportunities because jewelers are referring us to, you know, optical shops that we didn't even know about us. So it does make sense to be open to opportunities and to try to still build and design with intention and making sure that you create a flow that doesn't lead to friction, much to your point earlier. And we're very confident that we've done that. Now, there are some other regions that are new, like our fourth region, which will be the outside area, which will be expanding as new brands come in that want to participate. We also do plan the outside area to be more focused on local businesses, specifically luxury local businesses. We're finding now, with talking to a lot of the chambers of commerce in the area, that luxury businesses are actually missing from a lot of these chamber, committees. So the local jewelry store, the local real estate agency, the local optical shop, local spa, local what have you. These are businesses that really could benefit from working together. And before I go to the other two regions, which are, the more digital and virtual part, you do LinkedIn local with local businesses. So tell me what your thoughts are about this idea of including and highlighting luxury local businesses.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're so again, I have another great connection for you, Sahar. She goes to some of our events. That's what she does. She is like an ambassador linker for the high-end, more unique commercial or retail environment. So yeah, I agree, because right now it appears to be a word of mouth only, like a recommendation referral, rather than being able to go to a more expansive or exclusive directory to be able to, center around that. So yeah, I think there's a lot of mileage. And again, in Denver in June, the weather should be pretty spectacular. So that outside area is going to be very attractive, particularly for me, because I'm going to be escaping the heat in the desert. So,
and here's what's really interesting. For those that have been following our story, they know that our first event was scheduled in April in LA, and there was a very big pivot. And that pivot was, it's a lot of competition for events in April in the industry, let alone in LA. Yeah. But we also found that even though there's a lot of people in LA, probably a ton more than you're going to find in Denver, there's a lot competing for their attention. They don't like driving. We started to see too many things working against us. And when you do an event like this, you want to succeed your first time out. So we had a long talk with the vendors that are participating with us. And we said, look, we want to make this pivot. Will you make it with us? And we were so excited to hear almost 100% of them said yes. So we were able to make this pivot with confidence. But what's interesting is, even though Denver has a much smaller population, we're getting an incredible amount of additional traction. And our theory was, Denver is an emerging tech and fashion hub. So if we could take this idea to Denver, we're not going to be competing with anything. The only other fashion event that's happening is the third ever Denver Fashion Week, which is exciting because it shows that Denver is really stepping up to the plate to showcase all of the artistry that's been there for many, many years. But what we found through our networking and through our connections is that many, many, many businesses are relocating from LA to Denver. Fashion businesses, tech businesses, and so there is going to be an explosion of innovation and an emergence of fashion in Denver. And we're becoming almost like a catalyst for that in so many ways. I have somebody who I met through a connection who they are actually facilitating the migration of businesses from LA to Denver. And they're blown away by this event because they thought they were going to have to build something like this once they got enough LA businesses to create that kind of model, that rinse and repeat model of how the LA fashion market exploded. It was through events, through community connections, through collaborations. And they were like, you did it for us. Now we're just going to bring our people here. So, people say, why are you so confident? This is your first event. Well, there's a big need. And a lot of people are looking for a place to plug in where they don't have to build the event, find the venue, cover all the costs, source the vendors, do the sales, do the service, and then achieve their goal, which is usually the goal of that event. If you're doing an event on race cars, you want to drive, viewers and people participating in a race car event. You want to obviously generate the revenue you need to keep these events going. But our event has a very ambitious goal, and it's to facilitate a lot of different goals of a lot of different audiences while maintaining one universal goal, which is connecting us so we can discover new opportunities. And we know that that's working because it's truly happening. Before I shift to the virtual, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's the old movie, right? If you build it, they will come. Well, in this case, you're taking all the friction away from a lot of people trying to do it independently, and you're flowing them into a community that you're already planning to build. So what a great win-win for those people that were kind of thinking. And that's the other thing, the people that were kind of thinking about it, now all they need to do is decide, do I want to be there or not? They don't have to think about it anymore, right? So
you couldn't be more right. And I got to tell you, the team has been dividing and conquering and reaching out to every independent optical business. We're starting with the optical businesses in Denver, and the feedback we're getting. I mean, there was one woman yesterday. She was thankful. I mean, she said, "Thank you for doing this. We need this." I mean, if you're not in a position to collect the feedback, then you don't know it. Like, how is it that you've got all these people that have just been waiting for something to come to them because they don't have the resources always to go to New York or to Vegas, which is where most of our major events happen. And, they do meet a lot of their reps because they're coming in all the time, but they don't know them. A lot of cases, they don't know these brands. So they're cautious to bring in a new line and open up a new relationship. So they look to events like this to get to know the people that are working in their community so that the next time that person comes in, they're going to welcome them. So what we're doing for the ecosystem for our industry it's profound. And I'm really proud being someone who's done B2B sales and marketing in our industry for almost 30 years. Okay. And that is a data point that nobody can dispute. I am really proud that I'm able to finally give tools to the brilliant, amazing people who work as reps in this industry because they're very intelligent, hardworking, creative, resourceful, innovative. And despite all that, it is still very challenging. So my theory, Bruce, is what happens, and I love what you just said, when you remove that friction and you let people succeed with their own flow. How much more successful can we all be? So we want to be a friction vacuum. Love that. I'm going to use that forever. So the other two pieces, which I'm not going to demonstrate now, is what we call a portal. So every brand who's participating will have a portal. Those are the booths that you're familiar with that we use when we do our virtual events. So the portals capture all the visitor data. So unlike a physical booth, you have to get someone's business card to know they were there. But with your portal, we're going to attach every portal to the booths, the QR code, who's there immediately. And more importantly, who's interested. So if I have 100 people that come to my booth and only 5 of them, request more info or request, grab my special offer, who am I going to respond to first? The 100 or the 5? The 5. There's also ways for people to interact with the, booth inside, and we capture all of that data. So it allows us to say, okay, well, you got 100 people. These 5 obviously are going to follow up at first, but these 95, they stayed in your booth for 5 minutes and they sat at a table waiting for someone to come, or they connected with a rep, or they chatted in your chat, or they downloaded your brochures. Now you can prioritize that as well. And our vision with the portals is that a lot of the sponsors initially won't use it as much. And that's what's happened with some of our virtual events in the past. But when they see the difference of how that conversion will be facilitated by using it in conjunction with the physical, I think you're going to see a lot more using that for the before, during, and after, so they can get that data, so they can really nurture those people who are interested, but they just didn't know about it. And then the last region, and really this is for motivated people who want to see the future, want to be a part of the future, and want to start to learn how to do business autonomously, meaning you can do business with a company even when they're all sleeping. And that's where the Omniverse City comes in. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this will help because it's a live working model, right? And then I won't talk about it openly here. I have a great idea for the region 3 for you. So we'll do that. You know, we've gone real in depth today, so thank you for all
this
the
was
time.
great.
But yeah,
impromptu, by the way, everyone, just so you know, I mean, for an impromptu interview, Bruce, we didn't even know what we were going to talk about when we got on here. We were just like, all right, let's talk and see where it goes. But I really, really needed this interview, and I really appreciated it. It was great. Thank you for always being a great like mastermind buddy.
Okay, so just for fun, I'm gonna pull up Devin James's little thing. You probably don't. You may or may not remember this, but
I definitely remember it. The Metaverse commercial.
Yeah. So great example of how a conversation led to connection, and a connection Devin and I had after an IndyCar race in Portland, where I found a seasonal restaurant that is in the Columbia River. It's called The Deck. And we literally thought we were going to float around, you know, have a bite to eat for an hour. Well, we ended up floating around all afternoon on the deck. And from that, you know, Devin got to know a lot about me. And Devin, if you don't know him, he's what I call a brand story maestro. So if you have a brand and you want to take all of your flat written stuff and turn it into a very short, concise brand story, then Devin's your man. So just for fun, when Charlene and I were, I guess we were midstream of the design, right? I think is probably the place we were at. So I said to Devin, hey, can you help me get my head around this? So here's what he came up with. We ended up creating 3 spaces, which people are going to be able to see. And we ended up with spaces called Connect and Shop and Play.
You don't want to miss out, that's all I'm gonna say. The right place, the right time, the right tech. In the Omniverse is where I place my bet.
Connect and Shop and Play.
Imagine having Google stocks back in the day when you got up on the ground floor. Pennies to the dollar, this is opportunity calling, so you better yell holla.
And you know what's really interesting about Devin is I remember when he made the pivot from Devin is brilliant, very brilliant, very creative man. And he was working in an environment where he was getting a comfortable salary, but he wasn't feeling fulfilled. It wasn't even like he was toxic or anything. He just wasn't feeling fulfilled. He was feeling a pull. He was feeling friction.
Yeah.
And he and I talked about this because I made that leap. A lot of you know my story, so I won't go into it. But, you know, 7 years ago, I had to step away from 20 years. And it was, I was feeling the friction. But, you know, Devin followed that. And I don't know, I haven't touched base with him recently, but I feel like he stayed kind of in that state of, I'm going to follow my own journey. Yeah. And I feel like it's been successful for him. Do you have a kind of update on Devin?
Actually, Devin is a great example of a hybrid. He's doing all of his creative stuff, but he also found a role where he can really contribute his creative value to an organization. So he's flowing in lots of different arenas, which is amazing. But more importantly, you know, who would have known about Denver and the show, right? Or the event that's coming up? Devin pointed out right time, right place, right tech, right? And that was over a year ago, right? So this is all meant to be, and he really summarizes it, right? Like back then, who would have known that we would have been working together with a lot of other cool people up in Denver in the middle of June, right? And it's right there on that video. Right time, right place, right tech. So come join us. All right. Okay. Well, thanks, Charlene. Great, long and in-depth process. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy super mom, and it's Good Friday for some people. So thank you. And any closing thoughts?
No, I just really enjoyed this interview. It was really great. I love the flow. I love the, there were a couple things I did want to talk about, and we got to them all, but we got to them in a way that was very organic. And it was a good discovery, a moment for me. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, just hang for a minute. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening in. Catch the replay. Take your snippets, and Charlene will get the full recording so she can snip it down in any which way she wants. Take care, everybody. Bye.